Welcome back to What Are You Reading? A podcast by the Public Library of Mount Vernon in Knox County. I'm Christy.
And I'm Katie.
And today, even though the holidays might be over, we decided that we thought we would do something still a little bit festive. So my book is Laura Child's Twisted Tea Christmas.
And mine is Once Upon a Wardrobe by Patty Callahan.
So I guess I'll start out because I just want to regale you with how amazing my very first cozy mystery
I know.
was.
When you told me what you picked, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I don't picture you reading cozy mysteries very often.
Right? And I think you guys, if you've seen other episodes, you probably picked up on that is not really my genre. I used to host a book discussion here at the library that was the Stephen King book discussion before COVID times. So this was a departure for me. But I will say one of my favorite TV shows is Murder, She Wrote. I love Angela Lansbury. And I thought, okay, you know what? If I love those, I can probably do a cozy mystery.
Sure.
And why not holidays? You know, this was the perfect time to read one. And I kind of ended up looking into Laura Child's a little bit and found out this is like the first holiday themed as far as in this series, which is the Tea Shop Mysteries that she has done. And it was beautifully written with details about Christmas. Definitely made me wish that I was at this high society party. Which, if you aren't familiar, this is book 23. And I will say, like I said, this is my first cozy mystery. You do not have to read the other ones.
Okay.
To jump into this one.
Yeah, sure.
I did end up looking a little bit after I read this into the characters. So it focuses on Theodosia Browning. Who she owns a tea shop called Indigo Tea. And is also about her other employees, Drayton, who is her tea sommelier, and her chef, Haley. And they tend to be at the wrong place at the wrong time and run into quite a few murders.
Okay.
So this one takes place at a Victorian Christmas party.
Okay.
Put on by Drusilla Hayward, who is a very, very, very wealthy woman in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
And she has decided to throw this Victorian tea party to announce that before she ages any further, she is going to be giving away the majority of her fortune to charities.
Okay.
And she's invited these charities to the party to make this announcement.
Okay.
And let's just say maybe 6 pages into the book, Drusilla is no longer with us due to some interesting circumstances. So the Theodosia finds her in the hallway. They think she has maybe passed out or the excitement of the event has wrapped her up. They roll her over. She has a syringe in her neck.
Oh.
Yes. So if not too far into this book, we get our first murder and we get our sleuths are on the case, which I really did enjoy. I thought that was pretty fun. You know, I liked watching Theodosia, Drayton, Haley kind of figure out the whodunit. There's also a jewel theft in here. There's art theft in here. This Drusilla owns Renoirs, all kinds of different paintings. One of those goes missing. She happens to be wearing 5 diamond rings to match the carol, and one of those is missing. So there's a lot to unravel here.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the person only took one of the 5 diamond rings.
Indeed, right? Then I was like, okay, that might be a clue. Yeah. So I will say that some of the reviews said, you know, different people were like, oh, I figured it out, or, you know, I figured it out here. I'm one of those people that I really don't try to figure it out, really. I like to just kind of be along for the ride and be a little surprised. Yeah. So there is something in here for everybody, you know, as far as if you do like a little bit of a thriller, there's a little bit of thrill in here for being a cozy mystery, which is typically something, you know, just very enjoyable, not not too stressful.
Yeah.
I thought it did a really good job of being entertaining. But we also have that dark side too.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will say that at the end, we have some recipes, which I thought was kind of a cute addition.
Yeah, and do they have teas to pair with the...
They do, which is awesome. So it says, including recipes and tea time tips.
Okay.
So you've got little tips in here, too, about, you know, how you would present your teas and stuff like that. So there is even Haley's fried coffee cake, which I thought was cute. So recipes that they would actually have at the Indigo Tea Shop.
Okay.
Which, that's super cute.
Yeah, and I saw as you were flipping that lobster hush puppies.
Ooh,
like, that sounds delicious.
Doesn't that sound good? So you can see all of them are kind of like named after, you know, what would actually be in the shop. Super, super cute and fun.
Yeah.
So if you were to do this for like a book discussion group or something like that, you even have little recipes to do a potluck with. Yeah,
and it kind of reminds me of the Hannah Swenson series.
Yeah.
They're all, Hannah owns a cookie shop. So she has a bunch of recipes in with the books, and she too finds herself in the wrong place at the wrong time all the time. So to the point that her mother is like, you need to stop. As if she does it on purpose.
Right. Well, that's always been the joke, you know, with like Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
That like, if this person showed up in your town, wouldn't you be terrified?
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Oh my gosh, someone's going to die. Like,
yeah. It's like, you are not invited to my party.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't want you anywhere near me. I'm not talking to you. There is a detective in this as well who is along with them a lot too. So, you know, that's another character to add to the mix that he's familiar. So that little bit of, in a normal situation, the cop automatically would be like, maybe we should suspect you. You've been around for a lot of murders. But because he's been involved with them too, you get that camaraderie that he's worked with them before. He knows what's up. You know, like, we're going to be investigating this new murder you've stumbled on.
It's like, what did you see now?
Yeah, exactly, right? He shows up like, great. What is it this time?
That's funny.
Yeah, and I really liked just a warm cast of characters that... you know, was really easy to get involved with. Like I said, this is book 23. And I didn't have to have read the other ones to enjoy these people, get a little bit of backstory on each of them. I don't feel like I've missed out on much. But, yeah, it does pique your interest to say, maybe I'll go back and read the first one and see, you know, learn even more about these characters.
Yeah, and see how far they've come. You can figure that out without having to necessarily read the 22 books that came before.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm really interested to see, like, how the tea shop started. Because at this point, we're, you know, pretty far into her business. And I did get character development on her as far as, like, her background, you know, her characteristics, which is always great. Jumping in at 23, that might not be something an author would do, but I got a full description so I could visualize this character. So yeah, I'd really like to jump back in and see how did Indigo Tea Shop get started.
Yeah.
So yeah, I super recommend this one. Had a great time with it. So it is available here. Stop by, pick it up if you're still feeling a little bit of that holiday spirit. Or you want to make some delicious recipes and some teas.
Nice.
So let's talk about what you read this month.
So I will only preface this. I have a little story that goes along with it. There's my bookmark. As introduction, I'm going to read this little story that I wrote.
Okay.
So, once upon a wardrobe, not so long ago and not so far away, a boy with a heart condition discovered a book about a magical land, a white witch, and a lion. He was so enchanted by the story, he asked his big sister to find the author, a professor at his sister's university, and ask him where the land came from. His sister obliged, and they were never the same.
Oh, wow.
So this, if you go back to our previous podcasts, I had done Becoming Mrs. Lewis, who is also by Patty Callahan. And it was about C.S. Lewis and the woman who would later become his wife. So this book actually takes place around the time that he was corresponding with her but hadn't met her in person. I'm not sure if the characters other than C.S. Lewis are real people. But this one actually goes more into C.S. Lewis's background.
Okay.
So what he did before and how he kind of developed The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was the first book that he wrote as far as the Narnia books.
Okay.
The main character's name is Megs Devonshire.
Ooh.
And she is a student at I think it's Oxford. It's either Oxford or Cambridge. And her brother has a terminal heart condition. And he's like, well, you go to school where C.S. Lewis works. So could you ask him where it came from?
Yeah.
And so she actually trespasses on his home.
Oh my gosh.
Which is called the Kilns. And his brother Warnie finds her and is like, hey, come on up to the house and you can ask your question. And rather than telling her, like, oh, I was walking in the woods one day and this came to me, he starts telling stories from his young life.
Wow.
So you get a lot of incidents that shaped who C.S. Lewis comes to be. And one of the things that I was really taken with was a lot of knowing what he will have to deal with in becoming Mrs. Lewis. Basically raising two small children after his wife dies and things like that. There are points in his story that when he was a child and when he was a young man, that it's like, oh, he needed to go through that so that when he met the Gresham boys, he would know what to do. And it's really nice. There is a letter in the back of the book that is from one of the Gresham boys. So one of his stepsons wrote kind of a response to this book and said, she did a great job finding his essence.
Wow.
And putting it there.
That's pretty great to hear from someone that actually knew C.S. Lewis to kind of give their stamp of approval on this.
Yes. And he's someone that I feel like, you play that game, who would you have at your dinner party, living or dead? And I would totally have him because he seems like this really interesting person and had a lot of things go right and wrong in his life and just that shaped him, and hearing those stories firsthand. So it's a good read that's not too sad, even though it has a terminally ill boy in it. And it just kind of shows how warm and inviting a person that C.S. Lewis was, especially with people who have questions for him.
Yeah.
And he was known to correspond with a lot of people. So if you corresponded with him, he would probably answer you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing of someone that I feel like we hold into like quite a bit of esteem, because those books are just so loved, that he was willing to speak with just about anyone that was interested in his work, and especially this circumstance where we have a boy who's terminally ill and happens to love The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah, and it's always been interesting to me because when I was in undergrad, I read a lot of C.S. Lewis, but it was his academic work because he was a medievalist. And he pretty much knew every myth that ever existed. And just seeing how this book shows how he came to fall in love with all those myths, and then how he made a career out of it.
Yeah, and that's pretty amazing to think of having all of that kind of floating around and still being able to come up with something completely original to your own story. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. exactly.
I feel that way about Tolkien too, you know.
Yeah, and he and C.S. Lewis were good friends. They were part of the Inklings, and Tolkien, it seems, had no problem telling him what he thought of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and all of that. So yeah, and I'm sure C.S. Lewis had a similar effect on Tolkien's work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love reading about characters that are real people. And just like with Becoming Mrs. Lewis, I kind of fell down the rabbit hole and started looking for other books that are kind of adjacent to this one. So one of the people who had a profound effect on C.S. Lewis's life was George MacDonald, who wrote a book called Fantastes.
Ooh.
So I have been trying to find it because he wrote in like the 1800s. So I don't think he and C.S. Lewis ever met. And yet he wrote this like fantastical story that hooked C.S. Lewis and then kind of shaped his own writing process. So yeah, he was blessed to be surrounded by people who had a lot of talent that could shape and guide him along his way.
Wow, that's pretty incredible to think of. I will say that I was just walking through the shelves, and that cover stood out to me so much, how beautiful this cover was.
Yeah, and the book does take place in wintertime.
Okay.
So I don't think it ever does any Christmas, but it's right around winter finals time, and that's probably one of the reasons that Megs gets invited back to the house, because there's snow everywhere and she's outside.
Oh, okay.
And I think when Warnie catches her off guard, so then she falls in the snow.
Oh no.
So then it's like, come to the house, you can like take off your coat and warm up by the fire. So, and that's kind of how this book feels. You're just kind of curling up by the fire and listening to a bunch of stories, like you might have at a campfire. Just these little It's such a cozy vibe, and that's kind of what we were going for the month of December. Trying to think of things that give us those nice warm feelings, considering that it's getting so cold and a little dreary out. Things that you could pick up here at the library to just kind of keep you warm. Yep. And after the stress of the holidays, it is something that won't strain you too much. They're
absolutely.
Just interesting and fun.
Yes, nice light reading that can kind of get you through those post-holiday feels.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for another podcast, another year down of doing our podcast. It's so much fun. We're definitely going to continue it into the new year. So be on the lookout for all of our content in 2022. Lots more new books on the horizon.
Yes. Can't wait.
No, very excited. All right. Thanks again, everyone. Remember to subscribe, follow, check us out down below everywhere you can. And we will see you in 2022. Bye.
Bye.